everyone. Thank you so much and welcome back to The Lift with Sheila Robinson Kiss. This is the channel where we're focused on mental health, movement, and motivation. And you guys, we've got it all here. The channel checks so many boxes for you. And if you're loving what I'm doing, please do share the news of the channel with your friends and family, especially this series that I'm doing. This is the second installation of the inner child. You know, how to connect with your inner child, how to heal your inner child so that you can catapult your life to the next level. Get your friends involved, people you know, anyone that you feel would benefit. As far as I'm concerned, we can all benefit. I myself, I'm taking advantage of this course too. You can never connect enough with this vital work. You can never know enough. So again, I welcome you back. And I have to tell you, today we're going to be working off the companion workbook that I put together for all of you for the series. If you didn't get it in the first installation, go ahead, just follow that link and I will get you the companion workbook for this inner child series, because we're going to be going step by step and taking the deepest dive ever into this essential work. You know, I sit with so many people every year, and I've connected with so many people throughout the course of my career. And I have to tell you that a great many, this is not an overstatement here, a great many negative situations, maladies, world situations, relationship conflict, you name it, from A to Z. If this work, the work that we're diving into, if folks would have stopped before they had children to do this work, it's never too late to dive into it. But I could think where this is the type of thing that just shaves off years and years of headache and heartache. So suit up, because the dive starts now. In the first installation, I was just going over some of the basics, the fundamentals of dealing and connecting with your inner child. I want to move into this a little bit further today. And again, if you don't have your workbook, follow along with a journal. But if you want to get the workbook, it's a very useful tool. Just follow that link below and I'll get it out to you ASAP. The first thing that I want you to do, if you haven't already done it, is really stop, take a deep breath, and to recognize deeply that this inner child work is real. You guys, this is real, and people come to it from all different perspectives. But I want you to get centered in how you are going to approach this work. Because if you're coming at it with inhibition, you're not going to get as much as you can out of it. And what do I mean by inhibition? It's more or less an intimidation factor of, I feel funny doing this. What, Sheila, what is this? This inner child stuff about? Do yourself a favor right now and throw that in the garbage can. Because when you're talking about, so let's back up a little bit. When you think about the children in your life and think about it when you were a child, kids, I love them so dearly because they can pick up on BS. They can pick up on just kind of that inauthentic, laissez-faire. Children see more than we can ever give them credit for. And your inner child is no different. If you're positioning yourself with this work with question marks behind it, and this is something off, in airy fairyland. You're not going to make that really deep connect that is needed to sit with this inner child, to work with this inner child, and to do the deep reparenting. And we'll get into that in a minute. That is necessary to really get you that traction and ammo you need in all areas of life. To use an analogy, and again, I'm really big on understanding why you're doing what you're doing. I want you to imagine that you had an amazing trip at some point in your life to California. But then some years went by and you decided, you know what, I want a change of scenery. And you moved to New York and you've been in New York for a very long time. Does that negate the time you spent in California? Of course it doesn't. And the evolution of you, as you think back to your coming of age, it's really no different. At some point, at some point physically, you were a child. At some point physically, you were born, or you wouldn't even be listening to the sound of my voice. That inner child and all of those experiences, just because you may be 35 or 45 or 65 or 85, it doesn't negate the reality and the impact of those experiences. And I explained to you in the first installation why the inner child is the most pure aspect of our personalities, because when we start writing on that slate, or just say the world starts writing on that clean slate of inner child, it's doing so in the purest state. It's like a blank canvas, and everything you just soak in like a sponge. So the first step is really positioning yourself in terms of the mindset to really do this work, because some of the things that I'm going to be asking you to do in the series, it really requires, in much the same way that a parent would get eye level with a child, this work is deeply meaningful work. There's an intimate nature to it. And what you want to do is remove the question marks and inhibition so you can absolutely get the most out of it. I'd like you to, at some point, and we'll get to the packet in just a minute, at some point in the next 24 to 48 hours, I want you to announce announce to your inner child that you want to hear from him or her. You're going to be hanging out a lot more, and you're just basically going to be opening up that door of connection. The same way, if there was a child that you hadn't seen or connected with in a long time, you're not just going to kind of yank them up and, hey, let's get in the car, let's get something to eat. You wanna, if you're new to this work, or if you haven't really connected with that inner child in a while, you want to do something really to warm up the spirit of that inner child and announce that connection. What I'm going to ask you to do in your packet, and if you don't have it, again, just follow the link. I'll get it to you ASAP. Make some notes on what I'm saying. You can always come back to the video. Under the section in the packet that is labeled tips, techniques, and suggestions, I want to say that's around page 6 or so, tips, techniques, and suggestions. I want you to make a note to find a hard copy picture of yourself when you were a child, ideally between the ages of 4 and 12. And take a picture of that and make it your screensaver or your wallpaper on your cell phone. That's going to come in handy, and it's going to make it, it's going to be much faster for you to kind of get that eye contact, to really connect. Images help us to connect in powerful ways. So having that image of yourself as a child is going to be a very powerful tool. So in your tips and suggestions portion of your packet, write that down and make a note to get that inner child, to get that photo on your cell phone. It's going to come in quite handy. um, there's there's a piece, and I want to bring this up because I got a note the other day from someone. They're like, Sheila, I'm very excited about your series. And then they went on for several more paragraphs where they were describing certain instances with their parents. I can't stress it enough, and I stress it with great compassion. This work is not about your parents. This work is not about blaming your parents. It is not about pointing fingers at your parents. This work is a form of liberation in a very real sense. It's about reparenting yourself in the areas that you and your inner child have identified are challenges, are struggles, but we also celebrate that which the inner child, the strengths. We also take a really good look at that. So it's a very it's a balanced process. But to be clear, if you come into this work with just the heavy energy of um, anger, frustration, upset, rage, blaming a parent, it's going to give you another layer to cut through. But if you say, you know what, I acknowledge the anger, regret, what have you. That said, I want to put all my energy into healing my life and healing this inner child. Perhaps it's that parent who caused it. I don't know the particular case. Everyone is different, but I do want to share a story with you that will really illustrate why it's important in every way you can. Understand, I'm not trying to be cruel when I say, you know, cut that cord of resentment loose. If you have it with your parents, I'm not negating what you may have gone through, but I'm saying it's going to serve as an obstacle. It's going to put your attention on them when the attention needs to be on the inner child and what the inner child has to say, how they need to connect with you, the information they need to impart with you. So let me share the story. I was sitting with someone, well, two people last year, and just wrapping up some very intense family counseling. And I have a father in one chair, and I have the son in the other chair. And there was a point in time, this father had started having children when he was very young. It was a tumultuous relationship that both of them shared, a lot of changes through the years, to the point where they had reached a point they could come in to a therapeutic session and try to work some of this out. And we get to the point in a session where this young man was just opening up about, his struggles and the wounding and how hard it was to just reconcile the physical abuse that he endured from his dad, and the drinking, the alcoholism, and all of this. And I turned to his father. If there was ever the perfect timing for just validation, healing, the whole 9 yards. And I asked this man, express to him, how you feel in terms of responsibility for his pain. Open up to him. This is the moment. He is your son is crying out to you in this moment. And I saw the father, it was almost like a tug of war within himself. And his response was just woefully, it fell woefully short of the kind of responsibility and the kind of validation that his son was looking for. And later he would share with me in a one-on-one session, Sheila, I just, it is so hard for me to think about the level of pain and damage that I've inflicted. And, he shared some other things, and it crystallized for me in that moment. And even beyond that, he had confirmed what I've really held in my heart and known for many years. In your growth and development, people in your life, they're not necessarily on the same continuum. This man would not raise his hand and take the kind of responsibility and accountability that his son was looking for, because literally, had he done that, it would have forced him to rearrange so much of his reality. He was very comfortable with the narrative. Um, I was a drinker because I was working out my own pain. I was out of awareness of what I was doing. He had built a whole narrative around his abusive tendencies toward his children and toward his partner that was very comfortable and acceptable for him. Um, I've seen this happen many, many times over the span of many years with family dynamics. People who are not taking deep dives into the work of healing and accountability, they would rather hold their narratives, even if it sacrifices full repair of a relationship. They would rather hold their narratives than take the deep dive that ultimately leads to liberation. So I had to explain to this son, you're going to need to decide. Are you going to sit on the sidelines of your life and wait for an apology and a narrative that, quite frankly, from what I can see, is never coming? Or is it enough? Are you going to allow it to be enough to know that you have the power to do the transformative work yourself and heal? So in essence, what I asked him to do is cut his father loose. Not saying cut him out of your life, cut that expectation loose. If you want to go to a ball game, have a hot dog, beer, whatever, God bless. If you like it, I love it. Enjoy yourself. But that may be all, and is likely all you're going to get. The fact that you got him into a therapy room, that's fantastic and wonderful. I believe this is the extent of what you're going to get. So you're going to have to make a decision. And I have a portion in the packet where I talk about your ultimate responsibility. What happened to you growing up? That's not, a kid can't process that. But you guys, there comes a line of delineation, a line of demarcation. We cross over into this beautiful, brilliant territory called adulthood, where we have a lot of choices, we have a lot of options, and it is up to you to put on the big boy, big girl underwear, and let's march out into the brave world, because it's heartbreaking. I've seen brilliant, gorgeous, brilliant people. They're paralyzed. They're paralyzed by the disempowerment of their youth. And they took that, and disempowered by people who have no more business dictating your worth and value than Lord, I can think of a lot of different little analogies. They just don't have any business doing it. It's the same equivalent of giving someone who's habitual drunk driver, giving them a driver's license. We fall into circumstances that, uh, yes, disempowering, but again, I'm going to keep bringing you back to the choices you have. I'll reference my video in the resource area that you'll find below, and I talk about one-step process to ultimate healing and freedom. And I talk about, again, you can keep people in your life, but cut them loose at the same time in terms of expectation. So that's just a word more about the mental positioning for this work. I'm coming now into the packet. And again, if you didn't get the packet on the first run, all you have to do, follow that link, and I'll get you the packet via email ASAP. We're going to go, I'm going to visit pages 1 through 3 right now and lay out why this information is so important. And you guys, I'm following, just as you're doing the series, I'm doing it too. I have a number of my colleagues who are doing the series, because the further you go into this work, you start to see how gratifying it is, how enjoyable it is. So, this is something you want to get as many people involved in your life as you can. So the first thing that I'm asking you to do is to identify. We're not going to start with the weaknesses. I want you to identify the strengths of that inner child. Here in your packet, if you don't have it, follow along on the journal. I want you to identify what are the core strengths. Think about your coming of age and what was it for you that really, some of those strengths you still carry with you. Were you curious? You consider yourself a smart kid, a funny kid, kind. Those are the attributes I want you to write down, because inner child work, make no mistake, it's also about celebrating the resilient aspects of us that propelled us through that time, and if you're fortunate, are still with you. Okay? And after you've identified your strengths, I want you to then move into identifying, and it's important to write this down, what are the areas of challenge? What are the weaknesses, the struggles that your inner child is dealing with? In your, I believe I'm going to say it's page 6 or so, in your tips and techniques and suggestions page, I want you to make a note sometime over the next 24 to 72 hours. I want you to either get, it could be a real candle or it could be an electric candle. And I've already asked you to get that hard copy picture put on your phone. And I want you to just, sit very relaxed, very quiet as you're starting that connection, that deep connection, hanging out with that inner child. And I want you to take a little bit of time, close your eyes, and just listen. The inner child will show up if you create the space. And remember, you're approaching your inner child in the same way that a loving parent would. Once you just, close your eyes and call on that inner child, something as simple as, it's been a little while. I'm doing this work for you. Ultimately, I'm doing it for us, and I want to hear from you. What is hard for you? What triggers you most? And you guys, write it down. Write it down. Some of it you're going to know instantly, but again, you're starting to build that rapport and that connection. When I really get deep into my inner child work, I would close my eyes and I would literally just imagine myself as the adult sitting Indian style on the floor across from my inner child, sometimes holding hands and just saying, talk to me. What's going on? the more relaxed you are and the further you go into the work, the easier it is. Lots of juicy information, lots of tidbits. Allow your inner child to just hang with you. You know, you can be driving, you could be walking, doing your exercise. Just let the inner child come hang with you a little bit. And again, you're going to warm up that spirit and that information will flow. Next thing is we're following along in the packet. I want you to identify what were your early lessons. What were the early lessons my inner child learned about love, conflict, communication, getting needs met, sharing my voice, and self-worth? I want, each of those areas, I want you to identify what were those early lessons. And why do I ask you to stop and identify that? Because you guys, that is the direct link. That's the direct link to a lot of the issues and challenges that you are witnessing in your relationship, at work, going through your life day to day. We can trace it directly back to some of the experiences, the early experiences of the inner child, the early lessons that were learned. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, I was taking a very deep dive into some inner child work with a woman who shared, Sheila, it is so very difficult for me. I have four children, and I'm simply not able to, when I'm disciplining them, when I'm trying to explain something, I'm so worked up, and I see them fearful. I see them intimidated. I'm kind of at the drop of a hat, and sure enough, you can trace it right back. She grew up in a household. There just wasn't a lot of calm discussion. It was kind of something happens, you go off the rails. Maybe you say something later, maybe you don't, but it's literally what she saw. And it was reinforced by several years after that. She left home with that habit, had never taken a look at it. So, how do you think she's going to relate with her children? This is directly related to what the early lessons she learned about conflict is. Whoever is the loudest, whoever is the strongest, whoever bangs their chest the most, that's who you stop and listen to. She learned that being loud, intimidation tactics, that yields control. That will handle the conflict, when in actuality, it just makes it worse. So it's important to go back, you guys, and identify. Please clearly identify the lessons you learned around communication, love, self-worth, conflict, because you're going to be able to trace it directly back, in most cases, to what's going on in your life now. I'm moving into page 2. I want you to take some time, and we're setting this up for the techniques that we're going to dive into in the third installation. What are the areas that need reparenting? What are the areas that you struggle with, that really need reparenting? And listen, I we can play games here and kind of dance around the barn, or we can just shoot straight. Where are the areas that you're struggling? What are the areas that are messing up your life, your relationship, causing you to lose sleep, causing you frustration? This is the time to deal with it. It's people waste so much time. What you will not acknowledge, you cannot heal. You've got to deal to heal. again, you got to deal to heal. I think about a situation that really opened, it was a watershed moment for me, and really one of the primary reasons that I got myself into this robust, rich inner child work. This was right after I finished undergrad school. I was at a party, and one of my close friends was about to leave town, had got a job. Everyone's having a great time at this party, and I was out on the terrace, just literally kind of in this paralyzed emotional state. It was not, let's say, not appropriate level of sadness. It was more or less off the map. And another friend came out and said, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, this is just really hitting me hard. Long story short, again, you have some moments in life that are really just eye-opening moments. You guys, that moment was not even about this friend who wasn't even going far. Really, just really like a state over. I could see this person routinely anytime. We're going to be sad if a friend goes. It had nothing to do with that moment. It was about abandonment, direct issues of just abandonment and emotional neglect. That moment was triggered, but it had been triggered before in just a variety of ways. But when I saw how out of proportion it was, it was like, yeah, you pretty much need to check in with yourself, because this is something above board. And um, that's the level of just transparency and truth that I'm talking about. You have to be completely candid with yourself. And I'm really just giving you one example. I identified that I was really going to need to do some heavy duty work in the area of just tending to my emotions. I was going to have to reparent this little girl who missed that, missed a really big chunk of it. So you really, if you're trying to get to elevated states and healing, you honestly can't afford to play any games with yourself. And quite frankly, when you know better, you do better. So the more brutally honest you are, the more healing that you will open yourself up to. So again, it's important. Write it down. What are the identified areas where you need to reparent that inner child? And the next thing that I want you to, again, this is intimate work, it's robust work. I want you to identify what are my inner child's triggers, and how have I allowed my inner child to act out in the past? How have I allowed my inner child to act out in the past? What have I witnessed? What are the behaviors of the inner child that have been problematic? Some problematic behaviors that have been reported to me throughout the years in this work. There's thousands of examples, but Sheila, I'm not able to. There's deep insecurities in my relationship. I'm constantly waiting for the shoe to drop. So what I do with my partner is it's accusations. I'm flying off the handle. They're fatigued and frustrated. See, you can trace that right back to instability. A lot of instability early on in the household. Sometimes people experience things early on. You may witness too much. Your trust levels early on are undercut. So the inner child takes the driver's seat, and your relationship is acting out. Um, that would be an example of acting out. had another person say to me, I function in my relationship and with my children. I rule, it's like with an iron fist. They can't, it's just everything. I'm on them. I'm on them. I'm on them. Well, you trace it back, and this person said, I felt so out of control. I felt everything was just up in the air growing up, and I always yearn for that stability and predictability, and I have to have it, and I've taken it to the nth degree. Okay, that's the inner child running amok in your family and in your life, and this person is watching it, as they would describe. I'm not comfortable with it, but it's automatic. So it's not automatic, guys. It's the automation of the inner child. And the conflict is, wait a minute, I'm standing by watching this. Why can't I do anything? You've got to get the inner child under control. And you do that by building rapport, relationship, and reparenting. It's imperative that you get into the mode of calming this inner child down so you can talk to him or her and start reparenting and teaching these techniques. It's not going to do you any good to do it in judgment. It's not going to do you any good to feel silly about it. I'm very practical with this word. It's just very matter of fact. You know what I'm saying? If you want delicious fudge brownies, you got to follow the recipe. Okay, you can't put too much flour in there. You can't. It's like A plus B equals C. We're doing things very methodically here because they work and it just makes sense. There's no judgment. We want these brownies to come out in a certain way, so we put the ingredients in, and reparenting is a key ingredient in healing your life and healing your inner child. So, dealing with the signature page, I believe that's page number 4 or 5, the signature page in your packet. I go over the key concepts. I ask you to sign that. I've signed mine. I'm taking the journey right along with you. And also, very important, the last pages in your packet, follow the mood diary as you're doing this work, because the mood diary leads to big time revelation. You're going to be able to track yourself, what's happening, what triggers me. The mood diary is very essential, found at the back of your packet. Key concepts to keep in mind. I can teach my inner child to respond differently because I don't respond to what is happening. I respond to what I tell myself is happening. Another key concept, learning new ways to think, feel, respond, and behave. It will take time, and I will be patient with myself and compassionate. Um, we don't change behavior, everyone. We replace outdated, toxic behaviors with new ones. That's the work that we're lovingly teaching our inner child, okay? And my inner child will heal, make healthy adjustments, and soar as I empower myself to be that filter and that funnel to my inner child. So you see right now we're doing this with pillars. We set our foundation, then we pour that concrete, and everything builds on the next concepts. So that's what I have for you for now. Dive in, enjoy it. It's robust. It's going to be interesting to see what you come up with. And in installation number 3, we're really going to focus on those robust strategies, how to talk to your inner child, how to calm your inner child down, and how to hold this work, and how to get more traction in every area of your life. I'm excited for you. Do join me next time. If you're loving what I'm doing, please share the news of the channel with your friends and family. Don't forget, I've got the packets for you. Just follow that link and we'll connect with you soon. Thanks so much, everyone.